This is a review of quiz number 4 about the law of sines and cosines, also the area of a triangle. For this quiz, you're going to need a scientific calculator or use Desmos.com. When you're using one of these calculators, you need to hit mode and make sure the mode is in degrees. Otherwise, you're going to get the wrong answers. So number 1 is to find the area of the triangle. So area equals 1/2 AB sine of big C. So for the area formula, the big C is the angle, and these are the sides. Now the angle has to be in between the two sides. And it is. If you look at the picture, you have the angle here, and you have the two sides. So we're just going to do 1/2 times 7 times 7 times sine of 140. So I'm going to do 0.5 times 7 times 7 times sine of 140. And you always want to make sure that you have 3 decimal places. You can round or truncate. Truncate just means to chop off the rest of the numbers after the 3rd decimal place. And since it's area, we're going to use the units and square them. So it's going to be feet squared. This one it's the same type of problem, but it's written in words rather than a diagram. So you have a side that is 8 feet, another side that's 7 feet, and an included angle. That means the angle in between them is 30 degrees. So it's the same area formula. So it's going to be 1/2 times 8 times the 7 times sine of the angle, which is 30. And we get 14. It doesn't have any decimal places, so you don't need to write anything afterwards. Or you could write 0.000, and that's going to be feet squared. Now down here, we need to either use law of sines or use the law of cosines. You use law of cosines when you are given all 3 sides or when you're given the angle between 2 sides. All the rest of the times you're going to use law of sines. So for number 3, we have an angle, 131, in between 2 sides. So this is a side angle side problem. So I'm going to use law of cosines. And I'm getting the formula from right up here. C squared equals A squared plus B squared minus 2AB cosine of big C. And we're just going to fill everything in. Remember that big C is the angle, and A and B are the sides on either side of the angle. All right, so we have C squared equals 9 squared plus 15 squared minus 2 times 9 times 15 times cosine of 131. Because these are all numbers, you can just put this whole side in the calculator just like it's written there. So I'm going to have 9 squared plus 15 squared minus 2 times 9 times 15 times cosine of 131. And you get c squared equals 483.135. Remember, 3 places after the decimal. And yes, you could round it to 0.136. That would also be okay. Now, because this is c squared, I need to square root both sides. So in the calculator, you just do square root, and then you do second and the negative button, and that takes the square root of the entire answer. So you get c equals 21.980. So that is the missing side. That is finding HP. That's finding this length right here is 21.980. Now number 4, you're given all 3 sides. So this is a side, side, side problem. So I'm also going to use law of cosines, but in this case, I'm finding angle Z. So I'm finding this angle right here. So for this one, you're going to use the formula here because I need to do an inverse cosine, which means that this is the find the angle formula. This one's find a side. Now the most important part about this problem is labeling it correctly. So I'm going to write out the formula first, which is big C equals inverse cosine of c squared minus a squared minus b squared divided by negative 2 times a times b. Now, big C is the angle that you're trying to find. So that's going to be angle Z. Little c has to be across from big C, so that's going to be 7. And then A and B, it doesn't really matter which one's which. So I'm just going to pick A as 9, B as 11. It's okay if you flip-flop these two, though. So let's plug them in. C is 7, so 7 squared. A is 9. B is 11. A is 9, and we said B is 11. So you're just going to put that whole equation in the calculator. Now you have to add an extra set of parentheses in the numerator and in the denominator if you're using this type of calculator. If you're using Desmos, I think you can set it up as a fraction. So I add an extra set of parentheses at the top, and here's my set of parentheses at the bottom. So I got 39.400. You could have had 0.401, that would also be okay. But that is the degrees of angle C. Number 5 is asking me to find the side AB. So I'm going to put a little X here because that's what I want to find. I am not given all the sides, and I am not given an angle in between 2 sides. So for this one, I'm going to use the law of sines. The law of sines formula is written up here. So this is where we circled the angle. So we said it's the sine of 44 over 7 equals the sine of 53 over x. Just a little tip. All of these at the top, when you take the sine of something, these have to be angles. The ones at the bottom, those are the sides. Okay, remember capital letters are angles, lowercase letters are sides. So I'm going to go ahead and cross multiply. So I have x sine 44 equals 7 sine 53. And I want the x by itself, so I'm going to divide by the sine of 44. That's your exact answer, and we can get a decimal approximation by putting it in the calculator. So 7 sine 53 divided by the sine of 44, and that is 8.047. For number 6, it's very similar. We are not given 3 sides, and we are not given an angle in between 2 sides. We don't even have 2 sides, so we can't use law of cosines. We're going to use the law of sines. But the ratio here, like I'm given a side, but I don't have the angle across from it. Now you can find that angle. You can find that angle by doing 180 minus 109 minus 34, because there's 180 degrees in a triangle. So you could do 180 minus the other 2 angles and figure out that this angle is 37. So one of my ratios is going to be the sine of 37 over 14 equals, now I want to find AC, so from A to C, this is my x that I'm looking for. So I'm going to do the sine of 34 over x. We don't even need to use the 109 at all in this problem. So I'm going to cross multiply again. I have 14 sine 34 equals x sine 37. We are solving for x, so I need to divide by sine of 37. Sine 34 divided by sine of 37, and you get x equals 13.008. Onto the back. It says find the measure of angle P. So I want to know what this angle is, so I'm going to draw my x right there. Once again, we are not given all 3 sides, and we are not given the angle between 2 sides. We're given an angle, but it's not between the 2 sides. So we're going to use law of sines. So this is going to be the sine of 94 over 47. Equals the sine of x, because that's the angle, over 29. I'm going to go ahead and cross multiply. So 47 sine of x equals 29 sine of 94. Now I want x by itself. However, it's stuck with this sine of x. So I need to divide by 47 first. And then to get rid of the sine by itself, we do the inverse sine. So I have the inverse sine. I'm going to add an extra set of parentheses here at the top. So 29 sine 94 divided by 47. You get 37 0.989. Remember, this is actually the answer to number 7 up here. Now we have spent a couple minutes now talking about when to use law of cosines. We have said that you use law of cosines when you're given all 3 sides, or when you're given 2 sides and the angle between them. So you could write this answer as side, 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 or side, angle, side. Some people also drew me a picture, which is fine. Some people wrote it out when you're given all 3 sides, when you're given an angle between 2 sides. Now for this last problem, it's a word problem, but really there's just a triangle drawn in there, so it shouldn't be any different to you. It's asking me to find the distance across the lake from point A to point B. So find this distance, we'll call this x. Should I use law of sines or law of cosines? Well, am I given all 3 sides? No, because I'm trying to find one of them. Am I given 2 sides with an angle in between them? Yes. So I should use law of cosines. And if you look back on the front page here, it tells you, oh, to find a side, you're going to use this law of cosines. So c squared equals a squared plus b squared minus 2ab cosine of big C. Remember that big C is your angle, so that's going to be my 70 degrees. And my little c is going to be the side across from the angle. And A and B, they don't necessarily matter. You could flip-flop them. Now we're going to take those and plug them into the equation. And since these are all numbers, you're going to put them in the calculator. So we get x squared equals 957,490.993. Don't forget that this is x squared, so you have to take the square root of both sides. So I'm going to do the square root of my answer. And I get x equals 978.514. And since this is a word problem, it'd be nice if you guys wrote feet as your units. The last question here is find the area of the triangle. The formula is on the front of the page. It's 1/2 AB sine of big C. Now remember that your big C is the angle. So big C is 70. And your A and your B are 800 and 900. And I'm just going to put all of that in the calculator. I'm going to write 0.5 instead of 1/2. And you get 338,289.343. And then area should have units squared. And that wraps up quiz number 4.